this episode of Talking About Orks, we're going to be going over your Big Mechs and the Mech. I'm going to throw that in here at the end. So Big Mechs, in my opinion, are probably the single most important model in your army, no matter what version of Orks you're going to play. Big Mechs with force fields are going to be a key part of your survivability. I would consider, if you're starting an Ork army, to plan on at least 2, if not 3, Big Mechs with force fields. One on bike and a couple on foot, either mega armor or not. Because there's just no better way to add survivability to your Ork army than the force fields. So let's talk about the Big Mek. So we still got not a whole lot has changed as far as the specs go. Weapon skill 3+, 5+ on the ballistic skill, strength 5, so toughness 4, wounds 4, 3 attacks. So he's still basically knob stats. And of course the mega armor adds 1 more wound and the 2-up armor save. Oh, it also comes with 4-up armor saves on the regular infantry guy. And the Big Mek on war bike, of course, adds in a wound and a 4+ save and the extra toughness. So there are pluses and negatives doing each one of these, and they're slightly different. So these two are virtually identical. The mega armor does have the option of the teleport blasta, which has the chance of completely slaying a model outright for having just 1 unsaved wound. So that's really useful on multi-wound models. Of course, almost everything is a multi-wound model these days, right? Both of these guys have the option of a Grot Oiler. The 2 big things, of course, again, is a custom force field. Let's talk about the force field. This model is equipped with a force field. Friendly Ork units that are entirely within 9 inches have a 5-up invulnerable save against ranged weapons. If the Big Mek is this is an important thing here. If the Big Mek is embarked, vehicle transporting has a 5-up invulnerable save against ranged weapons instead. So the general rule for 8th edition is that auras do not work inside transports unless specified otherwise. The KFF specifies otherwise. So it's very important to note that if your opponent questions why is it working inside the vehicle, you point to the rules, it's because it says it works inside the vehicle. So the other thing is that they are entirely within 9 inches, not wholly within 9 inches. So that means a big base model, like say a Gorkanaut or a unit of cans, you don't have to keep the whole base within the 9 inches, as long as the base, some tiny part of the base is within 9 inches, you will get the force field save. So like with a unit of 6 cans, all 6 cans have to be within 9 inches, but not wholly within 9 inches, so just barely touching that 9-inch bubble will suffice to give you that save. So there's a difference between entirely and wholly and entirely, and it makes a big difference on these big base models like cans and the Gorkanaut. For that matter, the Stompa, I guess, if you ever want to play one of those. Tanks too, so you can just have like the corner of a battle wagon hitting that 9-inch bubble and it'll get the save. Things like that, things you have to take into account when you're positioning models on the battlefield, is that it's entirely within 9 inches. So every model in the unit has to be within that 9 inches, but again, not the entirety of each and every single base. Again, when you're doing with infantry models, that's not going to be a big deal, but with the bigger base models or large vehicles, it can make a big difference on how you set on where things are and how you have to put them on the battlefield. So keep that in mind when positioning your models under the force field. And the other thing is the Big Mek mechanic. At the end of your movement phase, this model can repair a single friendly clan vehicle, other than models that can fly, within 3 inches, and the model regains D3 wounds. A model can only be repaired once each turn. So 2 things with that is you can't stack mechs, unfortunately. You can only repair each vehicle once per turn. And you have to be within 3 inches. And the last and most important thing, you cannot do that while you're embarked. You have to be outside the vehicle to do the repairs, unfortunately. Because again, all these rules, when you're embarked in a vehicle, rules don't work. They're off unless it says otherwise. So it'd be nice in the codex if we were able to repair while inside the vehicle, but I doubt that's going to happen because it's not like that on any other codex so far. So that's highly doubtful. Now there are some differences on that when it comes to the mech on the bike. For his rule, big biker mechanic, at the end of your movement phase, if you did not move more than 5 inches, this model can repair, blah, 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 within 1 inch. So the other two are within 3 inches. This one is within 1 inch, and you can only move 5 inches. So that's very important to keep in mind when you're playing with a big mech on a war bike and trying to repair vehicles. You have to limit your movement. And that includes regular move and advancing. So the other two don't have that restriction for movement, so you can move and advance. So you can move farther than 5 inches, but with this, no matter what, you cannot move more than 5 inches. And that means any part of the model. So twisting the model, but the biker base, because it's you know, oval, doesn't help. No part of the model can move more than 5 inches and still repair. And you have to be within 1 inch on a biker model instead of 3 inches. So lots of things to keep in mind if you're running bike on the mech, big mech on bike. It could be why these kind of restriction here, the points don't scale very well. The big mech on bike seems to be cheaper than it should be for what you're getting out of it, and this is why, because of the restrictions on the big mechanic rule. It makes a big difference. And of course, you can take shock attack guns. Can't take it on the Mega Armor guy, but you can take it on the other two. Shock attack gun, heavy D6, strength 2d6, AP -5, damage D3. Before firing this weapon, roll once to determine the strength of all the shots. If the result is 11+, do not make wound rolls. Instead, each attack that hits causes D3 mortal wounds. With a random strength like that, you know, hopefully they fix the shock attack gun in the codex. Because right now it's kind of just boring. Shock attack gun was always about the fun things it did. And of course, always the chance of rolling that doubled sixes to get just a vortex grenade, a vortex blast out of it was always cool. So the shock attack gun is meh right now, but if they fix it in the codex, it'll be great. And the last thing we want to go over real quick is just the regular Mech Boy. So he's just regular boy, so he's got 3 wounds, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 attacks. So he's just a regular boy with 2 extra wounds. And he can do a repair within 1 inch for 1 wound. And the nice thing about this is he is really cheap. So if you need to fill out an elite slot for some reason, it would be better if he was an HQ, because if he's HQ, then you could be great for a cheap HQ choice, but he's not. He's elite. So for some reason you need to fill out an elite slot to get a minimum detachment going. Mechs are stupid cheap, and you know, you can, if you're playing these sort of vehicles, you can just walk them behind it and have them repair a wounded turn. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention is that the biker mech, big mech on bike, cannot take a Grot Oiler. The other two can. Just something to keep in mind. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the big mechs. Again, I just want to point out that I still consider the big mech to be, right now, the single most important thing. Big mech with a force field. The single most important model in an orc army. Because that 5-up invulnerable save against shooting is great. If your dice are hot, you're going to be really making people annoyed. And, you know, always being able to mitigate any damage whatsoever is going to be a great thing. And it can affect vehicles. 5-up invul save against las cannons on walkers and other battle wagons and stuff is great. So again, I would consider, if you're doing an orc army, big mechs with force fields are the single biggest or single most important investment you can make to have your army playable. So any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Orcs. Please subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications for new Talking About Orcs videos every Wednesday, new battle reports every Friday, and hobby videos whenever I can. Thanks for watching.